First, a text message just in from Liam. There is a mysterious French lady who leaves roses upon the grave of Michael Collins. A polite gesture, you might say. Absolutely. I don't know if that's Daithi, I think, leaves roses on the grave of Michael Collins too.
Lilies.
Daithi Kavanagh was born in 1958 and lives in Trinity, Wexford with his wife Caroline. He has 2 kids and 2 grandkids, and he worked in construction and as a musician up until 2012. He went back to adult education and earned a degree in Irish Culture and Heritage Studies at the Wexford campus. He has written 8 novels since that time, including a crime trilogy, the Tadgh Sullivan series featuring the gun, the brotherhood and the crucifixion, a dystopian trilogy featuring the Green Wave, the Hydra Syndrome and the Storm, a horror novel set in Bannow called Totem, and a rich satirical novel about Wexford's underground called the Small House Co-operative. Welcome to the Red Book Show, Daithi.
Thanks,
Wally.
Hey, Daddy. Yeah, thanks, lads.
You've been a great supporter to Red Books since we started, and you were the first person, I think, to ever launch a book in here with us. And you've always supported us, particularly during COVID when we were locked down for 40 weeks, I think. You would have shows and you would always give us a shout out, and you're a huge supporter of small businesses, I know. So it's great to have you here now anyway, and I know you're busy and you're playing a gig tonight, right?
Flying down the sky tonight.
And you're still playing a lot of music?
Not a lot, just a couple of sit-down sessions.
Yeah.
I'm on the old Free State pension, as we say at the moment, so I have an income, you know. And
Good.
Caroline has the pension as well, so this is handy.
And Caroline has played an important role in your writing. She's your editor and your literary agent,
and she spells the words for me as well. Caroline was a legal secretary when she was working. I was a fellow with a shovel, labouring on building sites, and so that's how I started out in the music. I injured my back on the building sites, so I bought a guitar, sat down with a copybook, wrote out all the songs. I knew I'd been singing rebel songs in pubs for years, drunk as a lord, so I made use of that experience, wrote all the songs out in one of the kids' copybooks, and bought a guitar, went out on the road and managed to pay the mortgage.
That's extraordinary.
Singing songs in
and
little pubs in Wexford.
Completely self-taught, like a lot of lads with shovels.
And
incredibly, because when you said that, I suppose you're one of the best read customers I have. You've read incredible stuff. We'd often talk about books, and you've read everything from the most obscure fiction to highbrow philosophy and politics. And now you're saying you taught yourself the guitar as well and paid your mortgage with it.
I jump into things when I do them, and I jump out of them then. That's the problem. I haven't written anything in quite a while, since actually I took up the Irish. And in its own way, that's been a great success too. Thanks to Red Books, it has been. You know, we have a regular group here. We come every Monday and every Wednesday.
And that's Cafe Modern and
Modern Cafe, and we actually, some people who never spoke a word of Irish in their lives are now sitting around the table drinking coffee, and we're having conversations in Irish. And it's a great thing, because
it's a great success.
Wexford, there was never a lot since the Normans arrived, or the Vikings, maybe even further back. Irish hasn't been the language of Wexford town in particular. Within the walled town, there was very little. It was French, then English, and Irish was kind of, they kicked the Irish lads outside. I think they landed in Modern Town first, I'm not sure.
And
right
outside the shop as
right
well, outside the walls, like
Irish
Town,
like Irish Town and Ross, and that kind of happened here, and there wasn't a lot of English spoken in this town, So it's nice to see it coming into being.
It's pretty amazing to see so many people coming that we had to scramble to find chairs for everybody to sit.
And actually speak, and I discovered something about myself as well. In school I wasn't great. I had a problem. Class size was one problem. If you fell behind, you didn't catch up again, because the classes were so big. So I've discovered since picking up the Irish, I learn much better through listening. And I love podcasts and like this interview here tonight. I think you can pick up so much information simply by listening, more so than reading. When I read now, maybe it's an age thing too. I fall asleep when I read, maybe that's why I've gone away from the reading and writing so much. And I put in the pods at night time and listen to someone being interviewed in a podcast, or I'd watch a TV program. Daithi O'Shea actually does excellent interviews on his program on Tadgh Sullivan, and so.
Would you say you're fluent in the language?
No, not in any sense am I fluent.
You're very close to it though.
But
I've listened to you.
I it appears to someone who doesn't speak Irish, I would appear to be fluent, but I'm not. I mean, when I listen to Ross and Arun, I haven't a buzz notion what they're talking about, because these are actual native fluent speakers,
Yeah.
But there are podcasts out there for anyone that's interested in learning Irish. And these are people who learned Irish themselves. They're not native speakers, and it's much easier to understand them. It's a bit like, trying to listen to someone with a Wexford accent like me. It's hard to pick it up. Is that right, hon?
Yeah, you shared with me some really good videos.
Yeah.
Just basic stuff in Irish.
Yeah,
and I appreciate that.
There's some great stuff out there now online, and I think that's what's helping the Irish language to become stronger all the time, is the fact that there's so much online now that you can actually, before you had to go to a Gaeltacht to hear the language, whereas now you can hear it online or on the television or anywhere. That's a good thing.
Did you ever think of writing a book in Irish?
I have thought of it, but I'm nowhere near that stage. Maybe a child's book or something I could write, or maybe a book that would be for people like myself with broken Irish. That's what we refer to as far Gaelic Brishta or Berlic. Broken Irish is better than smart English. That's a kind of a saying, and myself and Kieran started the group originally, the Irish group here, and that was the foundation of the class, was that we learned to speak it more so than study it. Yeah. Broken Irish is better than smart English I thought it was a good place to start.
Absolutely.
And it has gone from strength to strength, and it was really nice group in here. The people are lovely. Isn't that right, Steve?
Oh yeah, I was noticing. I'm putting two things together I hadn't put together in my head before. But Wally and I have been talking about how it's been difficult to get people to come out to events the last few months, just because of, for whatever reason, and there's several reasons you could say, but there's no difficulty getting people to come on Monday and Wednesday to the Irish classes and to Cafe Majin. I mean, it overflows.
There is one unfortunate thing. Most of the people coming are my age, do you know what I mean? And I would love to see younger people, but they're not available during the day, and it's very hard to put classes on at night. It means you having to keep the shop open and stuff like that. We've tried it, and it didn't really work out that well.
No, and especially now, I think it's hard to get people to go out. Even the fact that you get such crowds in the daytime,
hard. Yeah,
I think there's a depression hanging over society in general.
Well, that's real. Well, you see, there's another thing. The language and the music. I like I said, I made a living singing rebel songs. Basically, they're extremely popular in Wexford, and I kind of made a living out of it, paid the mortgage, put the lads through school, stuff like that. And luckily they both play now as well. Ella plays the fiddle. Rory plays just about everything.
He's amazing.
Rory's a really good musician and a beautiful singer. And but there's a huge connection in Ireland in particular between music, language and politics. They're very closely interconnected. You take the songs, for instance. In a lot of countries, they have very little knowledge of their own history. You know, very little. Whereas in Ireland, we didn't get the kind of sanitized version of history. We heard the actual history from the ordinary people, and that came through the songs and through the stories. There was a great tradition of storytelling and singing around the fire. My mother told me in her youth, they used to sit around the fire, they'd sing, they'd dance, and they'd tell stories, they'd tell ghost stories. There was a fantastic kind of connection, but that connection was always there. The kind of rebellious element within society in Ireland, that power remained with the people through storytelling, song, and language. There was a strong connection before the 1916 Rising, the Irish language movement and the Gaelic athletic movement were a huge force that pushed forward 1916 and the revolution here in this country. So it's a great thing and should never be underestimated. Today we're very controlled by media, told how to think, what's right, what's wrong. We struggle with thinking for ourselves, I think, and writing and songwriting. All those things, I think they contribute to a healthy society where the people are not dependent on so-called experts to tell them what's right and what's wrong, that they can think for themselves and they can judge. And I think that has come to the fore as well during the Gaza crisis, that people were able to think for themselves and decide this is wrong without being told by the government what way to think. And I think that's a great, Ireland needs a great pat on the back for that.
I've told Wally this before about Jane Jacobs, and she wrote a number of books. She was sort of on the fringes of economic thought and a social economic genius in my mind. And her last book was called Dark Age Ahead. She wrote it in 2004. And what really struck me now, thinking about this, she said the whole world might be now going dark, and she explained why. But she pointed out particular areas. She identified Japan, Appalachia in America, and Ireland as places that would probably never go dark, no matter what happened. And I can see that since I've been here now, is just what you're saying, Doc.
It's amazing because we had 800 years of oppression, and yet even though we've lost our language to a huge degree, our culture is extremely strong still after 800 years of oppression. So it just shows that oppression doesn't work. You can see it in the Palestinians. The oppression is not crushing them. If anything, it's making them stronger. You can see it in Iran. You can see it throughout, at least the Shia Middle East. You can see it. And it's
culture is something very important for you, Daithi, and you see the connection between music, storytelling and politics. And they merge together in your work.
And song and music. They're great. I went to see Lee Munwain Lee recently in the Opera House, and I can't think of his name. He's the lead guitar player on the band. Man, nearly my age, and he's a fluent Irish speaker, an actual fluent Irish speaker, not like me, pidgin Irish speaker, but a fluent Irish speaker, and he sang a Sean-Nós song at the end of it, and the whole place, you could feel the emotion in the concert, because that connection to our Irishness, after all that struggle, was never broken. You know, you'll always have quislings and people willing to take money, and you always have those who profit from someone coming in and conquering their country. They're willing to take the king's shilling, as we call it here in Ireland, and the same happens throughout the world. But we, the ordinary people, I feel, came out on top. Unfortunately, we don't turn it into politics, into a winning political formula. That is an unfortunate thing, and this is true around the globe. The working class are divided. They're divided over things like immigration or whatever. And the media keeps them divided. And the same two governments, you know, Tweedledum or Tweedledee, are always elected because the working class are always divided. And this keeps happening. We've had Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael running this country since the foundation of the state. In America, you've had the Liberals or the Democrats. In Britain, you've had Labour or the Tories. And it's just Tweedledum. If you go to France, anywhere in the so-called democratic world, it's exactly the same. It never changes. The political scene never really changes. They say, and they all come out with these slogans, we want change, but we never actually see the change. Nothing ever changes, you know.
It's a duopoly. Duopoly.
It's a sad state of affairs, you know, that democracy has been hijacked.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you're talking to you, you can see that you have a very proactive rage. You're not just going to give out about something, but you'll turn it into something. You'll use that energy. When you started writing, you wrote a crime trilogy, and reading back on it, I know there were ebooks. One of them has now been published and is available here to buy. The Gun, but those three books were very political. They were very anti-establishment. You wrote them right after the recession, and you could tell you were very angry with the state at play.
He was a man who was given this gun one night by a member of illegal organisation, we'll put it that way, and he was handed the gun to look after him, and he told the person who gave him the gun that he'd thrown it in the river, and but he hadn't. He'd kept it, and now he'd lost. He couldn't pay his mortgage. He was angry, and he decided he was going to start killing politicians. So that was kind of basically the story in the book, and it went from there. And Tadgh Sullivan is a detective who was supposed to be hunting this fella down. He was called the deer stalker killer because he used to wear a hat, deer stalker style hat. So
and Clare is a big location in those books. You have a big link with Clare.
I love Clare, and I've been there hundreds of times, possibly. I go to Doolin all the time, or out to the islands. Inishmaan is a fantastic island, and since I started learning Irish, I'm looking forward to going to Inishmaan and maybe trying to talk to some of the locals. It's Inishmaan is a Gaeltacht area, and it's a fantastic place. Ancient. If you want to see ancient Ireland, go to Inishmaan. There are castles on it, stone, forts more so than castles, not like your romantic style castle. These are old forts that are from the Stone Age, like they're thousands of years old. You have ancient graves from the time of not the Stone Age, the Bronze Age graves there. You've every sort of thing, and the cottage, actually, Pierce used to go to the cottage there. It was a writer, he was a playwright. He wrote numerous plays, and he had this cottage on the island, and and the funny thing is, I watch Ross na Rún now, and the main character in Ross na Rún is this fella called Tadgh. He runs a pub. Right. And he actually grew up in that cottage where Pierce had spent time, summers in it.
Yeah. You wrote that crime trilogy, as we said, from after 2012, but you wrote them in a very short period of time for someone who had never written a book before. Yeah. How did you start writing? What happened?
I started, that was just after the crash, and I couldn't work because tax reasons and that kind of thing. I found it difficult. That's why I went back to school. It was becoming increasingly hard, even to be self-employed in particular after the crash. It was very hard. The states kind of tightened up on everything. You know, you had to show every little tiny detail, what pubs you were in, and you see, anyone who works in the music business, sometimes you'd have a few lads who would join in with you and you throw them a few bob.
Oh, look, you don't have to talk to us about dodging tax. Steve is a notorious tax dodger.
But anyway, so I went back to school that time, and I sat in the bed mornings when I wasn't in school, and I used to write in, once again, copybooks, the kids' copybooks. I used to write into them, and Caroline, my wife, who was a secretary, legal secretary, she used to type them out for me, and fix the spellings and all that. And so it came. That was the first few books, and then I started using the computer myself and typing them myself,
and you ended up writing your first 3 books were brought out as e-books.
My favourite is the Small House.
The Small House.
I love that.
And that was written in
everyone's
2019. Published in 2019.
And I wrote that when I started coming here.
A very different book, darkly satirical and much more personal.
Very Wexford.
Very Wexford. And I love the description of the pub. What is the the cave? Yeah, the cave.
Yeah, the cave. The cave. A lot of people were wanting to know which pub was the cave. And a lot of people guessed, but I'm not going to say it here over the radio.
Did you find some of these characters like out in Wexford town and sort of give them new names and so on?
I did, but
inspiration.
I based a lot of the characters on people I know, and the main character actually I based a little bit on myself, you know, because I was a pretty pathetic kind of person at one stage in my life, you know, and lost and no direction, and it's a really hard place to be, you know. But you know, the book was dark and gloomy, but it told people kind of at the bottom that there is a way out.
Yeah.
You know?
It told them they existed too.
Yeah, he exists, and you know, I got a strange comment. Person I know, this person is well off, and he read the book, and there's parts in it about philosophy and all, and you have this gang of drunks basically. And they were talking about philosophy, and he said, well, that was a bit unrealistic, people like that talking about philosophy. You know? But when we were growing up, we sat in graveyards drinking bottles of cider and bottles of tawny wine, and we discussed philosophy. We discussed at the back of Tony's house there in the graveyard. and we discussed Lobsang Ramp and all sorts of things, and so, you know, this idea that there is this idea that somehow the working class are somehow incapable of creating a way forward in the world, but that is totally wrong. We, at one stage, but it will never be allowed to happen. The last time at the turn of the 20th century, when from the 1800s into the 1900s, the whole world exploded because there was a chance for the first time ever that working class people would take over the reins of politics, and it wasn't going to be allowed to happen. And there's a very similar vein running through politics today, they are terrified of the working class. The establishment that runs the world is terrified. And I don't take sides here. I want to see all wars end, not I don't want to see anyone win. I don't care who wins. I just want it all to end and people to live lives.
And the shackles now are not the landlord's baton, but more the kind of almost like the Brave New World type carrot instead of the stick, I suppose, where they give you all these games to play. They give you the internet. They give you perceived freedom and access to all the information you could want, but really
But the funny thing
you're
is,
still a prisoner.
the people with the power are actually telling us the internet is bad. It's like they don't want to use it. I remember when Elon Musk took over X. On Facebook, you had the establishment telling everyone, get away from X. This fella is dangerous. And they did. They left in their millions. You know? But if you look in the right places on X, there is fantastic information. You have all these maniacs on it as well, hatred. You have all that. But there's some brilliant information out there. And I think possibly the internet is the most democratic thing that has happened to the world since the revolutions of the first half of the 20th century. There's great democracy in it, that it gives us all a voice, that you don't have to be an expert. Now there's people giving out about that, or just anyone at all can't have opinions. You know, they should learn their opinions from us and then give them. But I think that's nonsense. I think democracy means, even if you're wrong, you have a right to say it.
And maybe that comes back to that kind of dismissal of the working class voices that you've told. That comes from all sides of the political spectrum, I think.
It does, and you'll see it in political parties. The minute they start becoming popular, they get scared and they want to please the media, because I know, you know, and everyone else knows, you only have to look at the elections this last couple of days. If you don't keep in with the middle class, you are not going to be in power. Do you know what I mean? You can shout and bawl all you like, but you have to get on the side of the middle class to get into power. And that's another unfortunate thing about democracy. The working class, unfortunately, don't vote. They allow themselves to be divided. They stayed at home the last couple of elections, and the middle class came out and elected their candidates. And this is right across the board. If people opened their minds up and looked, it's there for them to see. Like, it isn't something that I'm inventing here. It isn't some kind of tinfoil hat theory. It's happening. Like, it's happening before our eyes. Like, you know.
Yeah. What was Orwell's quote about the proles? If only they could realise their power could throw them off their backs. And like Orwell, you followed up the Small House Co-operative by writing a trilogy of dystopian novels, The Green Wave, The Hydra Syndrome, and The Storm. And these contained, again, lots of philosophy, but they were also very visceral and contained lots of extreme sexual content. Was this something that was revealing itself to you as you developed your craft, or were you trying to make a point about modern society?
To be honest, I discovered Welbeck, as you did. And Welbeck used sex to become an extremely popular writer. And like everyone who writes, I've no illusions now, but I thought maybe I could write something really good, you know what I mean? And to do that, you know, read the people who are doing well. Do you know what I mean? And I read Welbeck. I discovered him, and I think he's a fantastic writer. You gave me one book by him.
Atomized.
No. The where he was supposed to be dueling with another French supposed philosopher. He a Zionist philosopher, and Welbeck really disappointed me because he gave in to him.
Right.
You know, and I found the book very disappointing. But Welbeck kind of, he had, with regards to sex, he had great courage. You know what I mean? He spoke about things that I wouldn't speak about here on the radio like they were. You know, he went into animals and everything, as you know, you've read some of his books. And
but all to make valid points about society. And,
exactly. He had huge resentment in the fact his parents had come from a kind of bourgeois background, semi-bourgeois, and he had this resentment about people who you had these communes. You've read some of his stuff, and he talks about communes a lot, and kind of parents meeting in these communes and forgetting about their families, kind of, and ignoring them, and it kind of ruins the children's childhood. So he was also into this kind of these clubs where everything goes, right? And these colonies, these nudist colonies, and all this stuff. But he's a really good writer. I thought entertaining writer, you know, and so that's why I took that line from him when I tried sex in the books. I thought the books were pretty good, you know.
I thought so too.
You know, I thought they were pretty good, but I wouldn't expect them ever to become popular. You know, they're not that type.
But that trilogy again contained a lot of anti-establishment views and a lot of political ideas, and politics is an important thing for you. We know even through this conversation, you were involved in various shades of political activity over the years, including the household tax campaign. And after a recession, you were, and you're very vocal still about the state of the world.
Well, you see, I was very involved in politics from a young age, and when I wrote the book, as you said, the first book, it was after the recession. I was angry. Like a lot of people. There was people hanging themselves after the crash that time, and there was a lot of anger, a lot of fear, and
you couldn't blame people.
I got it. You couldn't. But then I got into philosophy. And the world seemed to quieten down a little bit. There wasn't so much going on, and it suited me. I got into philosophy, and I got into writing about philosophy and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed that period. It was a very relaxed period in my life. Unfortunately, the world we live in, things changed for the worse again. And Gaza started, and wars throughout the Middle East, and you know, now we have Trump. Now, unlike most people, I don't think Trump is any worse than the rest of them. Do you know what I mean? I look at the whole picture. I think he's an ignoramus. I think he's a gobshit. I think he's all those things. But I mean, the death rate in Palestine, it has dropped dramatically since Biden lost power. That is a reality. I don't make these things up. It's just a reality. Since Trump took power, I think there's been something like 1,800 people have died in Gaza. I mean, there was 1,800 a week dying there before that. So, but he's made up for it in other places. He's attacked countries in South America. He's attacked Iran. Israel now is attacking South Lebanon. So he's made up for it. He okay, the death toll has dropped, but the point I'm making is the world is corrupt. I see the world as corrupt, and you know, this thing of Trump, Putin, Netanyahu, all these things. It's not them. The whole thing is rotten to the core.
It's a world of plutocracy, and the inequality of income and wealth is just getting progressively worse.
Well, that's a huge point.
It is.
That
you
is
were,
a
you were
huge
speaking
point.
of the middle class a little
Yeah.
while ago,
Yeah.
but what about the middle class?
They've been wiped
It's
out.
disintegrating.
It's disintegrating.
Yeah.
Well, I've always realised that in the US, the middle class is different in a sense. It's more of a cultural thing in Europe, I find. It's a thing, your parents were middle class and their parents were middle class and they were educated and you became middle class. It was more about education and where you lived than anything. Whereas in the US, I think it's more about what you earn, the car you're driving, stuff like that.
But it's also about where you live in the U.S. Because
Yeah.
some places you live in a ghetto, inner city, you don't have the opportunity to get an education.
Yeah.
You go to school and you emerge from school without any
Without an
education.
education,
Yeah, it's complicated.
It is, but you've had this thing in Europe where the middle class, I mean, the middle class weren't always rich in Europe.
Yeah,
This is the difference, like they were more educated than rich. It was a difference. And in Europe, you tended, not in Ireland, but on the continent, you tended to rent. Everyone tended to rent. You had these long-term rent leases and stuff like that. And it was a different situation. So
We could talk to you all night, Daddy, and I know we're on extreme time restraints because Tony will hit us with a big stick here. But before we finish up, we've talked about a lot of things here, and there's a lot of darkness in the world now. And we only have to look out, we see the death of the main street. We see young people who can't afford houses. We see people just walking around in a constant state of anxiety. But is there hope? What would you see?
And here's a
How do we
very
get out of this?
simple. Here's a very simple thing. On Changa Gaelega, Fowlam on Changa, or being to a Lord Rod Egam Noah, Fowlam on Changa, Ta Rang on Shaw Lower Jared, August is Bejer. Gyfeint to Albert a kind Oscailga agus chuir sé rud éigen nua is teach. So if you learn the language, it'll give you something new and something to believe in, and you won't be as dependent on. We are dependent. You have to have money in this society. You feel you're a failure if you can't continuously spend. That's what success is in the modern world. To be able to spend, to have money, to be able to spend. Consumerism.
I feel like we're transitioning from my youth, right? What I remember is people were focused on careers and advancement and getting ahead and all of that stuff. But now it seems like a lot of people are just reduced to surviving, just trying to survive.
You have that, but it's funny. The people who promote this consumerism are the same people who are saying we're destroying the planet, not them. The people who promote war, the people who promote consumerism, they are the people who are telling us we need your taxes to fix the climate. You know what I mean? So there's an awful lot of nonsense being shoved down our throats, and I think one way out of it is to promote culture, like the Irish language, the Irish music. They are things that will make you feel better about yourself and it won't cost you any money. So that is one way of doing it in my book.
Brilliant.
And get involved in politics and don't be afraid to open your mouth. You know.
Thanks, Daithi. Daithi
Thanks a lot.
Kavanagh, you're a gentleman, and you can pick up Daithe's books. Well, you can pick them up in Red Books. You can pick them up in other places as well. The Gun has just been issued as a paperback, and it's available to buy. So thanks for that, Daithi, and hopefully we'll have you back on again.
Please God, yeah.